UFC admin, breakdown, betting tips, let's start. Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. Of the two girls, Ivana Petrovic is definitely the smaller of the two. Jamey-Lyn Horth is a more well-rounded fighter in my opinion. Her grappling, her striking, her size, she's the much larger of the two opponents as well. But she does have a long layoff coming into this fight. She has a long layoff, was dropped a few times in her last fight. There's some question marks there, and some of the question marks are being brought up by the fact that I just find Petrovic far more attractive than Horth. When I was looking at the breakdowns for this fight, I was thinking, okay, so Petrovic can, she can grapple as well, by the way. Petrovic is a decent grappler herself. I think she can grapple with Horth. But I think Horth's grappling is too good. Like, it's too good for that to be the only factor here, and I feel like Horth is just a large lady herself that she could probably stuff a few of the takedowns, push her around, not get taken down. But I think Petrovic could close the gap with her striking. Her striking isn't, it's a women's striking, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a lady striking. I probably, if I was to put money on this, I wouldn't put money on this fight. It's just a women's fight, it's a coin flip. But with women fights, sometimes you just gotta go with the underdog, because it's just a random thing, isn't it? Petrovic, I'm gonna go with her. She's also the prettier of the two ladies. So that kind of, I was 50-50 on this fight. I was like, okay, there's too many question marks with Horth. I looked at the faces. I was like, it's Petrovic, right? Like, more appealing for the eyes if she wins here. Seeing her fight in the future. It's just, there's something going on there at least. But I wouldn't put money on this. I got Ivana Petrovic, and I think she will win this fight. And I think there's too many question marks with Horth, personally. Next up, Cody Gibson versus Chad and Anheliger. Tough names to pronounce. It's another one of those fights where I do think someone like Chad Anheliger, he's a decent grappler himself. I think he can grapple, but for a lot of the parts, his takedown defense itself isn't to the best. Like, if he's offensively grappling, yeah, he'll do alright. Defensively, not as much in my opinion. Cody Gibson of the two, I think, is the far better. I think he's a little bit better striking-wise, Cody Gibson, I think. And they're both 37 years old. They're both old veterans of the game. I say veterans. Most people haven't seen them outside of the prelims. Like, if you're a person that doesn't watch the prelims, you haven't seen these guys. Cody Gibson does have that reach advantage, though. That's the thing. The striking, he can keep it at range. Chad Anheliger could probably go for takedowns. Cody Gibson don't think handles takedowns the best. They're both the same age. He has a bit of a reach advantage. I'm going to go with the guy with the reach advantage and be able to stuff some of the takedowns and stay at distance and poke at him and win a decision, in my opinion. I think he'll win a decision in this fight. 29-28. The pick is Cody Gibson. We're breezing through this. Serhiy Sidey versus Garrett Armfield. Now, a lot of people are saying Garrett Armfield is the best underdog on this entire card, and I can see why. He has a win over Brad Katona. I believe he has a win over Brad Katona. Yep, he does, and he lost his last fight against Brady Heiston, where he was finished. So, the thing with Serhiy Sidey is, like, he was coming off of a loss in his last fight, but it was against a guy he did beat previously, against Raymond Tavares. And in that fight, in the rematch, it was a really razor close fight. It was a pick'em fight almost, like, say, Sidey landed more strikes overall in that fight, but the decision went to Roman. They also fought in the Contender Series where Serhiy Sidey, I keep wanting to say Serhiy Sidey actually got the win, but there was like a bit of an early stoppage, so they made the fight happen again in the UFC. In the UFC, Roman got the better of him, but it was a close fight. Could have gone either way. I'm going to go with Serhiy Sidey. I think they're both like similar ages, but I just feel like of the two, I can see why Garrett Armfield would be a good underdog to pick, right? He beat Brad Katona, who's a great fighter. Sidey is like a prospect coming of the Dana White's Contender Series. It's just one of those gut feelings, right? Like, I can analyze the two fighters and everything, but Sidey did lose to a guy he beat on the Contender Series. I feel like you get better when you enter the UFC as opposed to the Contender Series, in my opinion. I think the training camps are more rigorous, they're more person-centered, they're more opponent-centered. Specific game plans as opposed to the Contender Series where you're just like, okay, anyone they give me I'll take, and sometimes it's on short notice. I think in this case, Sidey will probably, he'll get it done, but I don't see why you wouldn't put money on Garrett if he is the underdog. Like, he's more proven, but just got a hunch, I think I've got Sidey in this fight. I've got Sidey. Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Finally something to sink my teeth into. Like, they're big bellies. But in this fight, we have two fat heavyweights, let's be honest, they're both ranked. And when this fight was first announced, I actually predicted this would be the worst fight in the history of the UFC. I wish they had a system where they would rank the worst fights on each card, because I think this is a strong contender for one of the most unskillful, fat slob slugfest that you've ever seen in your entire life. And I say slugfest, it'll probably end up being really boring. Okay, here's the thing. Ariane Romanov is a decent fatty, right? Like, of all the fat fighters, he's probably one of the more decent ones. He was meant to fight Derek Lewis, and I thought he was going to beat Derek Lewis, to be honest, easily. Gets rescheduled against Nascimento, who's coming off a loss to Derek Lewis. That was a shameful fight, one of the worst of the year, for sure. Derek Lewis did eventually end up finding the chin on Rodrigo Nascimento and finishing him off. But Nascimento looked alright as you can look, being a fat heavyweight and just like swinging with the other opponent. Romanov, I just trust more in like being able to get a takedown, control you, and maybe even finish Nascimento in the first round. Because here's the thing, right, with wrestling and grappling in the heavyweight division. When you're one of these fatties, like, what is Nascimento going to do off his back? He's not going to throw up a triangle, is he? Like, with his fat body and his fat frame? Can you imagine trying to throw up a triangle? I can't see it. The picture of Romanov here, I think he's just going to control him, grapple him, win 29-28. I don't think he quite finishes Nascimento. Nascimento defends the submissions. But I feel like Romanov does enough to win the first 2 rounds, and then Nascimento comes back and wins the third, because Romanov is in exceptionally terrible shape when it comes to cardio, and he looks it. He looks terrible, fucking horrible. I have some money on this though. I have $125 in total on Romanov. I think I'm fairly confident in this fight as well. Like, yeah, fairly confident. Moving up, Youssef Zalal versus Jack Shaw. Now, hear me out, right? Everyone's saying Zalal's a lock of the card or whatever. I don't think he is. And here's why. I know he left the UFC and came back, and everyone's saying this is Zalal the second, you know, like the second coming of Christ almost. I don't know if anyone's going that far, but it's Youssef Zalal at the end of the day. It's Youssef Zalal fighting Jack Shaw. Jack Shaw is a good grappler. I think he's a little bit better of a grappler than Zalal. Zalal is mostly a point fighter in my opinion. I think he'll point fight, but I think he's also a good grappler as well. But if the two fight to pick, I would say Jack Shaw is the better grappler. Maybe you can give the striking to Zalal, but Zalal is also a point fighter. I don't see him like going for finishes on Jack Shaw. I think Jack Shaw has enough grappling ability to be able to... And here's the thing with Jack Shaw, right? He lost to Joe Anderson Brito in his last fight. Nothing to be ashamed of. But one more... I'll get into this in a second. Nothing to be ashamed of. Joe Anderson Brito is a beast in the division. Like, he was throwing leg kick after left kick at Jack Shaw. His leg got completely chewed up. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to work on that, improve it, be better at the striking, and go for the grappling exchanges. I think he's going to win out overall over Zalal, who has looked pretty good in his last few fights. Don't get me wrong. I think he beat Billy Quarantillo a couple of fights ago. So he's obviously good. Some of his fights have come by the have finished by submission. He's good, obviously, but you know. But here's the thing with Jack Shaw. Jack Shaw isn't the biggest guy at the featherweight division. He's not the biggest dude, but he is skillful. Like, the smaller size just give you a little bit extra skill advantage, some speed advantage. I think he can circle out enough, because Zalal's a point fighter. At the end of the day, I don't trust his KO ability too well. I think Jack Shaw gets it done. I feel like he's being slept on because he's lost a couple of fights. But I think Jack Shaw's just better of the two. The pick's going to be Jack Shaw. He's a big underdog. This is where you put the money on. But I'm just a little bit unsure about this fight. Maybe Zalal came back like Charles Oliveira, like Blonde Olives. I don't think so, though, for the most part. Victor Henry versus Charles Jourdain. I do have money on this fight. Now, hear me out. Charles Jourdain is moving down a weight division, right? Moving down a weight division. He's a wild dude. He's been finished a few times now. Victor Henry is coming off a win over Rani Yahya. Again, it's Rani Yahya. Nothing to write home about. But I do like the toughness of Victor Henry. Like, I think he's going to push the pressure on Charles Jourdain. I think Charles Jourdain is going to crumble. He's cutting weight to go down a weight division. His chin's not going to be the best. He has some... Like, obviously, Charles Jourdain is an exciting fighter. Has some spinning attacks to him. Good striking. All that stuff. But here's the thing. I get Victor Henry's an old fuck. He's 100% an old fuck. But... he's still a little... I think he can grind out a win over Charles Jourdain. I think put the pressure on Charles Jourdain. And I don't like this... Like, these unranked fighters that aren't going anywhere moving down a weight division. Like, if you move up a weight division, I get it. You take the skill of the weight division below you to the one above you, and you just move up in weight. You get that muscle memory of, like, being in the weight division below you. You go up. You can replicate some of it. Going down in a weight division where the guys are faster... And Victor Henry is... I'm not saying he's faster than Charles Jourdain, but he is going to put the pressure on Charles Jourdain. The weight cut, his chin. I think Victor Henry cracks him, and I think he beats him. I have money on this. I have $105 on Victor Henry. I do think he's a good slight underdog. It's almost pick 'em odds. I think you should take Victor Henry. I think too many question marks about Charles Jourdain. And even the level that he's at. Charles Jourdain's level, like, I'm not sure how good he was at featherweight. Like, he was pretty good, but how many unranked fighters could beat him, you know? I think a fair few, like more than that have just managed to beat him. I'm going with Victor Henry. Ariane Lipski, who has recently been married, versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. Jasudavicius. There we go. It takes me a few tries to, like, because my mind goes blank and I look up at the name. I'm like, okay, Yasuda, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm just okay. Jasudavicius is the better grappler of the two by far, in my opinion. Lipski can grapple herself a little bit, in my opinion. Like, she can offensively wrestle with you, but on the back foot, being able to be getting taken down. I think this is the lock of the card almost, but I didn't put any money on this, so what do I know? I think Jasudavicius kind of completely destroys Lipski, to be honest. She just takes her down, grapples her, controls her, wins all 3 rounds, to be honest. I think she's a really strong grappler. She's 35 years old, so I don't think she's going to be moving up too far up in the division, but overall, for this fight specifically against Lipski, who I don't think is the highest of level of fighters, I think this is a pretty easy fight to pick, and I think, just to say Jasmine, I think she gets the win. My pronunciation is terrible for all these fight prediction cards. I don't know. Just can never pronounce some of these larger names. And Jasmine is the pick. Simple. Aiemann Zahabi versus Pedro Munhoz. Here's the thing, guys, here, right? Zahabi is a good fighter. He had a few losses like 5-6 years ago. I know, like a long time ago, 2019. Then he went on like a 4-fight win streak in like 4 years, like 4 or 5. Nothing too crazy. He's overall a point fighter. Like, he's going to be point fighting with Pedro Munhoz. And I don't know if that's a game he wants to play with Pedro Munhoz. If we've seen anything with Pedro Munhoz is, you have to be one of the best elusive strikers to be able to compete with him. Like Jose Aldo, one of the best strikers in the division. Real crisp jab, real crisp 1-2s. All that stuff. Dominic Cruz, real elusive. Could get around Pedro Munhoz. And even Kyle Phillips. Listen, Kyle Phillips got exposed by Rob Font. But Kyle Phillips was a good fighter. Kyle Phillips, overall, was really slick with his striking. Did all the right stuff. Did beat Pedro Munhoz badly. But at the end of the day, Pedro Munhoz has some power in his hands. Some pop to his shots. He's very, like, technical in a manner that, like, he does the most fundamental of things right? The leg kicks, the jab, everything. Zahabi, a point fighter. And not a high volume fighter at that. Like, he's not a very high volume fighter like Kyle Phillips is. And Jose Aldo put it on him. Dominic Cruz, not really a high volume fighter, but he can put it on you as well. And he is high volume. What am I saying? Just not a very powerful high volume fighter. In this case, I don't think Zahabi's point fighting style and non-pressure is going to be able to beat Pedro Munhoz. And the other thing is, if Zahabi was like maybe 30 years old, I'd be like, okay, so he's got a massive athletic advantage. I can see him. He's 36 years old. He's an old man. He's only 2 years younger than Pedro Munhoz, who's 38. But Pedro Munhoz was at a higher level at his peak. I'm going to go with the peak of Pedro Munhoz and say even on the downward spiral, he would still edge out a Zahabi point fighting style. So the pick is going to be Pedro Munhoz. As we move on, Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. A part of me wanted to pick Trevin Giles. I think he's a cool dude. Has a really crisp jab. And I think if he lands the jab too many times on Mike Malott, I think Mike Malott might fold like a lawn chair. Because last time against Neil Magny, that was a free win. Let's be honest here. UFC desperately wanted a Canadian star to win and become a top 15 level fighter. And then moving on, next time they go into the Canada, he can either be like, on this fight night, if he won that fight, he'd probably be the co-main event. And that's what he missed out on. Now instead he's opening the main card. A good spot for him. I think he has the better wrestling of the two. I do think striking wise, like Trevin Giles' jab might give him the edge, but I think Mike Malott can mix it up a little bit better. I think the takedowns will be there. I think he has some decent striking himself, Mike Malott does. I think Mike Malott will probably get this done, but I am a little bit afraid about his chin. His chin is the biggest question mark in this fight. Trevin Giles, if he lands too many crisp jabs onto him, I think he will make him crack and crumble him. But Mike Malott just seems like a more of a physical specimen, like a Canadian Michael Chandler, but obviously soy version of that. Because we saw him crumbling against Neil Magny. It's fine. I'm going to pick him. I can't pick Trevin Giles in good conscience. Like, I can't actually physically be like, I think this Trevor Giles is going to win. I would just have to say he will eventually land enough jabs, maybe enough 1-2s, follow it up. Then Mike Malott will just quit. I just don't expect a fighter to quit. He did quit in his last fight. But maybe he was badly hurt, or maybe he had like a bad weight cut. I don't know. I'm going to give him a second chance here. I'm going to go with Mike Malott. But be cautious in this fight. There was too many uncertainties for me to put a bet on this fight, to be honest. Next up, Marc-Andre Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Of course I can say that perfectly, with perfect pronunciation. Anyway, Dustin Stoltzfus, like, here's the thing. Marc-Andre Barriault ain't the highest of level fighters, but he is at a level in the division where if you're a top 15 level fighter, you can beat him. But he might be that fraud check for that top 15 level, because if you remember, he had a really close fight with Chris Curtis. I thought Chris Curtis won that fight for sure, but that fight was close. Like, Chris Curtis is a really good striker, and Dustin Stoltzfus, I believe he got KO'd by Abuz Magomedov. Now, Abuz Magomedov in round 1 is a beast, obviously. We know that. He's a beast in the first round. One of the crispest strikers we've seen in the division, honestly. Like, could give Adesanya a run for his money in the first round. But, overall, he couldn't survive the onslaught that he has. And just as a physical specimen, like, Marc-Andre Barriault just looks like a bigger dude than him. His striking is good enough. He has lost to Joe Pyfer, obviously, as well, recently. Another top 15 level guy, in my opinion. Marc-Andre Barriault, though, he's just a level above Dustin Stoltzfus. Isn't he? Like, everyone's thinking the same thing. When this fight got announced, you're like, Marc-Andre is winning this fight. Dustin Stoltzfus is good. Maybe it'll be competitive. I think it probably will be a little bit competitive. But I think comfortably, 29-28, Marc-Andre Barriault. I haven't been giving my exact prediction of how they'll win so far, so I'm going to pick that up right now. Marc-Andre Barriault, 29-28. Could be 30-27, though. I think 30-27, and then one judge will have it 29-28. I think it's just better. The pick is Marc-Andre Barriault. Oh, God. Now you know. Chao Machado versus Brenson Ribeiro. Here's the thing. Chao Machado is coming off of losses in the heavyweight division. He looks like a ripped... Like, he looks ripped as hell coming down to light heavyweight. And I'm kind of scared now. After seeing those pictures, the fact that I have money on this fight, I am now trembling in my shoes, which I'm not wearing right now. I'm not even wearing any socks. I'm barefooted. Anyway, Brendan Ribeiro is a light heavyweight, is already in shape, so it's not like one of those things where it's like he's really cutting himself down, like making those extra changes to his lifestyle. The pick will be Brenton Ribeiro. They're both coming off of 2 losses, but one's a light heavyweight, one's a heavyweight. One has fat nipples on him and a cringy lion tattoo on his chest. Who would ever get that? But yeah, I think the light heavyweight skill is just the big factor here. Chao Machado, they both could get a finish in the first round. I think it's very possible. It probably won't go to the decision, actually. Here's my prediction. Ribeiro by knockout in the first round. I think in the first round he'll KO the chin of Chao Machado. I think Chao Machado, fun name to say by the way, Chao Machado, I think will in the first round, I think he'll trade in the first round. And here's the thing, like the fact that he's cut down from heavyweight, that's a lot of weight he had to lose. I think his chin will be weaker. I think he'll get cracked by Ribeiro, who will eventually beat him. I think Ribeiro's a great underdog. First round KO. I've got the money on Ribeiro, $105. But now, after I saw that picture of him in light heavyweight, I'm thinking, is this like a Cannonier kind of thing? Where he's like a terrible heavyweight, but then the further down he goes in weight, the more disciplined and better he becomes. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'm still going to go with Ribeiro, though. Derek Lewis versus Jonata Diniz. Jonata Diniz. God, Diniz looks like he's just a fucking nobody that's about to get KO'd, doesn't he? Just look at his face. I don't have money on this fight, obviously. It's a heavyweight fight between Derek Lewis and Diniz. But Diniz did show some weaknesses in his last fight, in one of his fights against Austin Lane, where Austin Lane took him down, controlled him, but then eventually gassed and Diniz found the chin. Here's the thing. Derek Lewis is not going to... what am I about to say? I'm about to say Derek Lewis is not going to gas out. I can't believe I'm about to say that. I don't think Derek Lewis will gas out, but he won't be threatening any takedowns. And here's the other thing. The power of Lewis is proven. Even now, he's finishing off outside the top 10 heavyweights. Like, he's obviously over the hill. He's past his prime, which is crazy to say, because what the hell was Derek Lewis's prime? He fought the same way, but he just won more. An anomaly of the sport, Derek Lewis is, but I think he can beat the 10 to 15 guy range to this day, which is real low level. Like 10 to 15 guy ranked range for heavyweights is literally like unranked for anything below welterweight, to be honest. But I think he can beat those levels of guys. Diniz, I mean, look at his face. He's just looking like he's about to get KO'd. And I get it. Diniz can find the chin on Lewis, and Lewis could, you know, just fumble the bag. That's why I don't put money on this fight, you guys. It's a coin flip. I went with the guy that's the bigger underdog. And I just feel like Lewis is more proven right now as well. He's more proven of the two. Has more tricks of the trade, as you can say. Is a veteran, but flip a coin, honestly. Like, who? I'm picking Lewis, but there's nothing, like, don't hold me to my word for this one. Like, there's no way the biggest genius on the planet with the highest IQ could not tell you the outcome of this fight confidently. Like, literally, like, I'm just looking at this fight, I'm like, can he win the black Derek Lewis or the white fat Derek Lewis? Like, I don't know. No, Rose Namajunas versus Erin Blanchfield. Okay, now, Rose Namajunas versus Erin Blanchfield. I am praying for the downfall of Rose Namajunas. Nothing against her. Nothing against her husband. Everything against her fighting style nowadays. It feels like she is being main eventing these UFC Apex Fight Nights for the entire year. Anytime a UFC Apex Fight Night needs a main event that isn't a men's fight, it's like Rose Namajunas is getting the call. She's like the Alex Pereira of UFC Fight Night Apexes. Like, she's saving those cards, but really she's killing them. And her fight style is just so boring at this stage of the game. Flyweight is such a boring division. She's fighting boring fighters. She's having boring fights. Tracy Cortez literally embarrassed herself in the entire sport by having eyelashes on that it flew off. Like, is that what you're doing? Like, your entire life you're training to be a professional fighter and you have eyelashes on in the cage? Like, and Blanchfield, on the hand, is actually a good grappler. She actually beat Talia Santos. And if you remember that, the fact that Talia Santos actually beat Valentina, if you're one of those people, it was a razor close fight. Could have gone either way. I thought Valentina edged it. I was in the crowd. I saw the whole thing happen, you know, so my opinion means more than yours. But yeah, she beat Talia Santos. She got destroyed by Manon Fiorot, who is literally massively ginormous for the division. She also beat Rose Namajunas to make her look like a little boy. I'm going with Erin Blanchfield. I saw the fight with Carla Esparza. She's going to stay at distance. She's going to throw a couple of strikes. If Erin Blanchfield just pushes the pace, which I think she will, she did the same thing against Manon Fiorot. She actually pushed the pace. She was just like a little child compared to the Manon Fiorot's massive ass fucking, you know, testosterone-filled body. I think against Rose Namajunas, a smaller opponent, more, you know, like, I think Rose Namajunas has some good scrambles. She'll probably get away out of some takedown attempts. But I think Erin Blanchfield will just be able to close the distance. I think Rose Namajunas will be hesitant. I think it's quite fair to say that she could be hesitant in this fight. It's just her style nowadays. I think Erin Blanchfield can close the distance, make it look pretty for the judges enough that it's close enough on the striking, even if she's losing. It won't be too high volume, I feel like, knowing your Rose. Low volume, but have it close enough, and then just as it's like, okay, Rose is edging the round, shoot a takedown, control for a little bit, win the round just based on that. And I do have money on this. $125 on Erin Blanchfield. I just think she is too much for Rose. I think Rose's new style that she's incorporated is just, it's gonna hit a wall eventually, and it already has against Manon Fiorot, but the next wall down is Erin Blanchfield. I think Erin Blanchfield gets it done. Next up, Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. I've already made a video on this. I think Brandon Moreno is going to win. Straight up. Just straight up, Brandon Moreno is going to win this fight. Amir Albazi, I'm seeing a lot of people say they're picking him to win because of his grappling, his wrestling, being able to keep people down. Guys, he's not... Just because his name is Albazi doesn't mean he was born and grew up in the Middle East. Like, he was born... I think he was born there, actually. But then they moved to London, and he started training in London. And started wrestling in London. Or maybe it was England, somewhere there. At the age of 15. That's not a lifelong Dagestani, in my opinion. Because if you ain't crotch-sniffing bears from a young age, you ain't Dagestani, really, if you think about it. But Brandon Moreno, decent grappling defense, in my opinion. I think he can... Decent grappling offense as well. People don't seem to be mentioning this at all, but was able to take down Davison Figueiredo. Was able to take the back of Pantoja. 2 elite-level flyweights. Think he can do the same thing to Albazi, threaten it. Do the same thing to Royval, actually. Get Albazi down himself. I think Albazi doesn't have the most brute force when it comes to takedowns. Like, he'll grab a single leg onto you, like he did to Malcolm Gordon and stuff like that. But, overall, I think he'll be looking for trips. He'll be looking for some throws. He'll be looking to get him close, push him in the fence, and then go for some takedowns. Like, he'll really have to push you forward, and then he'll have to go for a takedown. He can't just start a round, go whoop-da-doo, you know? And then just go to takedown. He can't do that. Brandon Moreno will be stuff it. Better striker on the feet, by far. I mean, Albazi has weird power on the feet. Like, I can't tell if he has power or not, if he's just landing crisply on fighters' chins that are just a bit too reckless. Moreno's way more conservative than the other fighters that he's fought. One hand up, choo-choo-choo. The thing he does, looks for the inside shot. He'll win, I think. And also, Kai Kara-France clearly outstruck Albazi. I know Kai Kara-France has some of the most elite takedown defense in the division. It's obviously better than Moreno's, but I think Moreno is good enough. And he did beat Kai Kara on the feet, keep in mind. Moreno did eventually shut off his liver. Albazi clearly lost to Kai Kara. I think Brandon Moreno keeps it on the feet, gets taken down, gets back up, works his way back up, maybe loses a few rounds here and there. It'll be a split decision, because that's how these fights always go for some reason against with flyweights in the main event. 48-47 Brandon Moreno, I think, is going to be the scorecard. And the skill level is closer in flyweight, so this could go either way, but I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno. He's the pick, $125. Bet on it. Gamble. Gamble, kids. Don't gamble, kids. If you're under the age of 18 watching this, don't gamble, please. Anyway, I have 90 subscribers right now. What are you guys doing? Get me to 100. Come on, let's just do it. Like and subscribe. Don't share, because nobody shares in this world. I'll see you next time.